Hey guys, how are you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Or if you're new here, welcome. Today, I've got another creepy story for you. And this one, honestly, it gave me chills. It's about something that happens every single night. At exactly 3:03 a.m. Something that passes right outside someone's house. And the worst part is, it might not just be passing by. So, turn off the lights, get comfortable, and let's get into the story. Something whistles past my house every night at 3:03. Every night, no matter the weather, something passes by on our street whistling softly. You can only hear it if you're in the living room or kitchen when it goes by, and it always starts at exactly 3:03. The sound begins faintly, somewhere near the beginning of the street, close to the Carson's house. We live in the middle of the street, so the whistling passes by us before disappearing towards the dead-end street. When I was younger, my sister and I would sneak into the kitchen some nights to listen. Mom and Dad didn't like it, and we'd be in trouble if they found out, but they never really bothered us much, since we always followed the big rule. Don't try to look at whatever was whistling. My neighborhood is a funny place. I've lived here since I was 6, and I love it. The houses are small, but well kept, good-sized yards, lots of places to run. There are a lot of other kids my age here. I turned 13 in October. We grew up together and always played tag in the dead-end street or ran from balcony to balcony in the summer. It was a good place to grow up. I'm old enough to see that now. And there are only two strange things here, the whistling at night and luck. The whistling never bothered me much. Like I said, I couldn't even hear it from my room. But Mum and Dad don't like to talk about it, so I stopped asking questions. My dad is a strong, tall, and calm guy. He has an accent, since he moved to the US when he was a kid. His family, my grandparents, they're from the islands. That's what they call them. My dad, the only time he's not so calm is if the whistler shows up. He speaks a little faster, his eyes move faster, and he tells us not to think too much about it and to always remember the only rule. The big rule. Don't try to look outside when the whistler passes by. Not that we could really look, even if we wanted to. You know, there are shutters inside each window. Thick pieces of heavy canvas that hang down from above and attach to the bottom of the window frame. Each latch also has a small lock, about the size of the ones you find in a diary. My father locks these shutters every night before we go to bed, and keeps the key in his room. My mother, I don't know what she thinks about the whistling. I've seen her in the living room before, at 3:03, when the sound starts. I could see her if I opened my bedroom door just a crack to peek. She's not out there often, at least I haven't caught her many times. But once or twice a month I think she sits on our big red sofa, just listening. The whistler plays the same melody every night. It's cheerful da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. Da-da-da-da-da-da-dum. Remember when I said there are two strange things about where I live? Well, besides our nighttime whistler, everyone in my neighborhood is very lucky. It's hard to explain, and Dad doesn't like us talking about it much either. But good things seem to happen to people around here frequently. Usually, they're small things, like winning a radio contest, or getting an unexpected promotion at work, or finding some arrowheads buried in the backyard. You know, the authentic kind. The weather is really nice, and there's no crime, and everyone's gardens bloom beautifully in the fall. A million little blessings, I've heard my mother say about living here. But the main reason we stay here, why we moved here in the first place, is my sister Nola. She was born very sick, something wrong with her lungs. We couldn't even take her home when she was born. We could only visit her in the hospital. She was so small, I remember, small even compared to the other babies. A machine had to breathe for her. We moved to our house here, to be closer to the hospital. As soon as we moved here, Nola started to get better. The doctors couldn't understand it. They attributed it to whatever they were doing, but we knew they were confused. But my parents knew, even I knew, Nola getting better was just one more of the millions of small blessings we received for living in our neighborhood. So that's why we stayed. Even after we discovered that for every little miracle that happens here every day, sometimes. Some bad things happen. But they only happen if you look for the whistler. You know, our neighborhood has a welcome committee. They show up with a casserole of pasta and a gift basket and a brownie whenever someone new moves in. They're very friendly. 4 people showed up when we moved in 7 years ago. The committee chatted, gave me a Snickers bar, and took turns holding Nola. It was her first week out of the hospital, so they were very thoughtful. Then the committee asked to speak to my parents privately, so I was sent to my room, where I could still hear almost everything. The welcome committee told my parents about how good the neighborhood was. Really exceptionally good, a kind of good that's hard to explain. And then they told my parents about the even harder to explain whistling that happened every morning at 3:03 and ended at 3:05 sharp. The group, our new neighbors, warned my parents that the whistling was silent. It would never hurt or injure us, as long as we didn't look for what was making the sound. They emphasized that part, and I pressed my ear against the door, straining to hear. The people who went looking for the whistler had their luck changed, sometimes, tragically. A dark cloud would hang over anyone who looked. Anything that could go wrong would go wrong. The brown envelope the committee brought contained newspaper clippings, stories about car accidents and ruined lives, public deaths and bizarre accidents. Not everyone dies, I heard the committee chief say to my father. But life leaves them. Even if they live, there's no light in them anymore. No presence left. My mother, I could see she wasn't taking it seriously. She kept asking if it was some kind of prank they were playing on the new neighbors. At one point, my mother got angry, accusing the committee of trying to scare us out of our new house, and asked if they were racist because my father was from the islands. My father calmed her down, saying he could see that our new neighbors were sincere and that they were just trying to help us. He explained that he grew up hearing these kinds of stories from his mother and that he knew there were strange things going on among us. Some of these strange things were good and some were bad, but most were just different. After the committee left, Dad went to the hardware store, bought the canvas blinds, latches, and locks, and installed them on all the windows in the house after dinner. That first night in our new house, I sneaked out of my room at 3 a.m. only to find my dad awake. Sitting on the living room sofa, holding my little sister, my dad raised his finger in a she gesture, but patted the sofa next to him. I sat down, and we waited. We heard the whistle at exactly 3:03. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, dum, da-da-da-da-da-da, dum. He came and went, just like our neighbors said. The whistling returns every night, and we never look, and we enjoy our millions of little blessings every day. Nola breathes on her own, and she has become a strong and clever girl. My father even joined the welcome committee. We don't have new neighbors often, so why would anyone want to leave? But when a new family moves in, my father and the committee bring a casserole of pasta, a gift basket, and brown pasta. I can always tell from the expression on my father's face when he comes back whether the family took the committee seriously or if we were going to have new neighbors again very soon. Not long ago, a family moved into the house across the street from us. The previous owner, Mrs. Maddie, passed away at 105. She had lived a good, long life. Our new neighbors seemed like they would fit in well. They believed in the welcome committee, followed my father's advice about lockable shutters, since they had a small child. Any newspaper clippings that might have been in that brown envelope, any evidence, my father never let us see. But I imagine it must have been very convincing, since our neighbors got along without any problems for the first month. One night, when our new neighbors had to leave town, they sent their son, Holden, to stay with us. He was 12 years old, a year younger than me in school. I didn't know him very well before that night. But as soon as his parents dropped him off after dinner, I could tell it was going to be a disaster. "Do you know who's always out there whistling every night?" Holden asked as the adults left the room. The 3 of us were sitting in the office, some boring Disney movie playing on the television. My sister and I exchanged a look. "We don't talk about that," I said. I think it's that weirdo who lives in the big yellow house on the corner, Holden said. Mr. Tolles? My sister asked. Not at all. He's very nice. Holden shrugged. He must be a murderous psychopath. Then, Nola contracted. Let's not talk about that, I repeated. Let's go to my room and play Nintendo. We spent the next few hours playing games, eating popcorn, and then watching movies. A typical slumber party. But I could see that Holden was getting restless. After my parents wished us good night, closed the blinds, and went to bed. Holden got up from the sleeping chair and went over to where Nola and I were sitting on my bed. Have you tried looking? He asked. It's almost time. As with most slumber parties, we had conveniently ignored any suggestions about bedtime. I was shocked to see that he was right. It was almost 3 a.m. I sighed. We don't. You know, I can't. I can't even try to look, because my father locks the blinds every night and hides the key. He continued, ignoring me. Our father too, Nola said. No, Holden replied. No, it doesn't lock. You saw him do it, I said, a little more bluntly than I intended. Holden smiled. Your father does lock the blinds, yes, but he doesn't hide the key. He leaves it in his regular key. So what? I asked, worried that I already knew what he was going to say next, because I had noticed that my father no longer cared about hiding the key after all these years. Causey knew we took it seriously. So, after your father locked everything up, but before your parents went to bed, I went to the bathroom. And on the way, I might have peeked into their room, and I might have seen your father's key ring on the dresser, and I might have gone and borrowed the key to the blinds. Nola and I kept watching, and his smile only widened. You're lying, I said. Holden shrugged. You can check if you want. Just open your parents' door and look. You'll see his keychain on the dresser. Stay here, I told them both. Don't move. I ran to my parents' room, but hesitated at the door. If Holden wasn't lying, my dad would be angry. Very angry. I was scared just thinking about it, but even more scared of an open window with the Whistler right outside. I opened the door, barely, and looked, but it was too dark to see. Taking a deep breath, I went into the room. 2 steps in the dark, and I froze. The whistling began, and I could hear it clearly. From my parents' bedroom. I'd never realized it, but they must have heard the sound every night since we moved into the house. They never told us. I don't think I would have been able to sleep with that on. I stood there, listening to the whistling grow closer, unsure whether to turn on the light or call my father. Soft sounds from the room brought me back to reality. Nola! I yelled, running out of my parents' room. Holden and Nola were near the front door, close to a window. Holden wasn't lying. I could see him fiddling with the latch on one of the blinds. I heard a click. He had the key. Holden let out a quick laugh. Nola was beside him, huddled together, scared, but perhaps curious. The whistling was right outside our house now. I think I made a sound, I yelled. I can't remember. Time seemed frozen, clock hands fixed to the dial. But I saw myself moving. I'm not fast. I've never been athletic. Somehow, though, I covered the space between me and Nola in an instant. My eyes were fixed on her, but I heard Holden pull the blind all the way down so she could release it. I heard the click of it starting to rise, and I heard the whistling from right on the other side of the window. But I had my arms around Nola, and I turned us so she was facing away from the window. At the same time, I closed my eyes tightly. The blinds suddenly opened. The whistling stopped. I felt Nola trembling in my arms. Don't look, okay, I told her. I'll turn around. We were positioned so that she was facing the hallway and I was facing the window. My eyes were still closed. I felt her swaying on my shoulder. I stretched out the arm that wasn't holding Nola and tried to touch Holden. My hand brushed against his arm. He was trembling even more than Nola. Holden? I asked. Silence. I walked past him and carefully searched for the window, my eyes still closed. The glass was cold against my fingertips, colder than it should have been for this time of year. I moved my hand up the window, searching for the blind cord. The glass grew warmer the further I reached, and there was a soft hum returning to my fingers. I tried not to think about what might be on the other side of the window. Finally, I touched the cord and pulled the blinds down. I opened my eyes. In the dim light coming from the kitchen, I could see Holden, pale and small, looking out the note-closed window. "Holden," I asked again. He turned to me and he yelled. Everything turned into a flurry of movement. Lights came on in the hallway, then in the living room. My parents' footsteps echoed across the wooden floor. I didn't turn to look at them. My eyes were glued to Holden. He was pale. He had bitten his lip so hard that a thin red line of blood was running down his chin, and he had gotten wet. "What happened?" my father asked from behind me. I managed to turn away from Holden and look back. He looked. I had never seen my father afraid before, but that night, in that moment, I saw an old, ugly terror stitched onto his face. A father's fear. "Just Holden," he murmured to me. I nodded my head, saying yes. My father sighed. He seemed so relieved that I almost expected him to celebrate. But then he turned to Holden, and my father's face changed. I wondered if he felt bad for feeling good, that Holden was the only one who looked. There was a knock at the door. We froze. Holden groaned. "He's not answering," my mother said. She was standing in the doorway. I always thought she was skeptical and just playing dumb with my dad about the windows and the Whistler, but that night we were all believers. I noticed my parents were holding baseball bats that they must have gotten from their room. The beat came again, a little louder this time. "Please don't open the door," Holden whispered. My father went over to him and hugged him tightly. "We're not going," my father promised, still holding the bat. "Nothing's going in here today. TOC, talk, talk." This time, the banging was loud enough to make the door shake. Holden yelled again, and Nola wrapped her arms around my neck. My mother came and knelt beside us, embracing my sister and me. "TOC, talk, talk. Call the police," my mother whispered to my father. The drumming stopped instantly. My father glanced over his shoulder at us. Do you think that he was interrupted by a frantic knock that turned into a polite tapping sound? Talk, talk, talk. Police. Something said from the other side of the door. The voice from outside sounded exactly like my mother, like a parrot repeating the words to her. "Please call the police." Knock, 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 police. My mother pulled us close. "Police, police, 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 police." "Please stop," I heard her whisper. "I don't think calling them will help," my father said. "How will we know when it's them at the door?" The banging returned, louder than before. The door shook. Then it stopped. After a long moment, I heard the banging again, but it was coming from our back door. We turned together toward the back door, but the banging immediately returned to the front door. From front to back, from back to front, loud, then soft, then loud again. Suddenly, the sound was coming from both doors at the same time. Big, heavy blows, like a sledgehammer. Then something started banging on all the windows of the house, then on the walls. It was as if we were living inside a drum with a dozen people trying to play it at the same time. Or we were a turtle, and something was trying to knock us out of our shell. "Stop!" Holden shouted. The crash died. "I won't tell," Holden said, looking at the door. "I promise I won't tell anyone what I saw. Please, go away." We waited for almost a minute. Then we heard a soft tapping sound coming from the window Holden had looked at earlier. Holden began to cry, sobbing like a prisoner watching the gallows being built outside his cell. My father held him, ran his hand through his hair, but he never lied to him, never said things would be all right. The banging on the window continued for the rest of the night. We huddled in the living room for I don't know how long. Eventually, my mother tried to take us to my room while my father stayed to watch the door. But the second we moved into my room, the banging returned, so loud it was impossible to ignore. I was afraid the door wouldn't hold. We went back into the room, and the knocking stopped. Only the tapping on the window remained. None of us slept that night. The banging stopped around 7 a.m., roughly the time the sun rises here. We waited another 2 hours before my father opened the blinds on a window. He made us go back to my parents' room first. I heard him open the door and then come back in. "Okay," he told us. "It's over." Holden's parents got back around lunchtime. My mum and dad took Holden to his house, and they stayed inside for quite a while. Nola and I watched from the window. She stayed glued to me all day, right next to me, sometimes holding my hand. When my parents came back, they seemed somber, but they didn't tell us what they'd said to Holden's family. It was Sunday, so we spent the whole day together, ordered pizza, and watched movies. That night, everyone slept in my room. Nola and my mother in bed with me, my father in a chair he had pulled out. There was no banging that night, or any night since then. We didn't see much of Holden or his parents for the rest of that week, but on Thursday there was a moving truck in their garage. Nola and I watched them packing all afternoon after school. What struck me most was how tired Holden and his parents looked. They all had the same paleness, dark mouths, and lifeless eyes. Even from across the street I could see that something was very wrong. Holden and his family left before sunset. Default text. I remember what the original welcome committee told my parents when we moved in. Not everyone who looks at the Whistler dies, but even those who live lose their light, and the rest of their lives are filled with misfortunes. 1,000,000 little tragedies. I think Holden's parents must have looked. Either to comfort him if they didn't believe him, or to share the burden if they did. I watched Nola some days, happy and young and alive, and I wonder if I had been slower, if she had looked out the window that night, would I have looked too? To comfort her, to share that burden. I'm glad I didn't have to find out. We still live in that house, in that neighborhood. We still hear our whistle passing by every night. The blessings, the luck, the good things here are too good to go away. But we're careful. We don't have friends to spend the night with anymore. And my father hides the key to the blinds very, very well. Not that I went looking for it. Some things you just don't need to look for. All right, that's it for today's story. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for more creepy stories like this, and let me know in the comments. What would you do if this happened to you? Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.